message here surely has got to be that God's work is brought about by broken vessels, by imperfect people.
Also, maybe even more than that in some sense, is that the brokenness might be a precondition for a kind of revelation that couldn't occur without that particular kind of brokenness. And so, and that touches back.
But again, remember.
Yes.
Right.
The brokenness might be a precondition for a kind of revelation that couldn't occur without that particular kind of brokenness, which actually maps to something from episode 1 where, I don't know who said it, but brought low enough to be humble enough to be ready to receive. And I was struck by the link to OP, like the acceptance that you're living in Savior heaven at the cost of avoiding looking at your demons.
Right.
The inexhaustibility of my own ignorance. Like, it's almost like we can only really acknowledge, or it's much easier to acknowledge our own shortcomings in a times of crisis because we are directly confronted in the SE with said shortcomings.
Right. Well, often that's when it's forced upon us, right, to acknowledge them. But how many times don't we? And like, you know, they'll talk a little bit about tyranny and how tyrants will double down on what they're doing. They'll, you know, they talked about slavery. Oh, you want to take a break and worship your God? You want to take a break from slavery? Here's some more slavery. And I feel like in a sense that relates to our types as well, because it's like, oh, you're doing too much, you know, play consume. Well, let's double down on the play consume. And then you just continue, and then an EP, you'll just burn it down. You know, you just burn the bridges, you know, have just chaos everywhere. So yeah, I agree. He talks about salvation too in that context. So I just want to tie this in. He says, salvation isn't true salvation if we forget everything we were before. So like going back to like, if you're going to acknowledge and humble yourself, and you're going to go the other way, and you're not going to continue to like enslave yourself to the tyranny of your own, you know, addictions or saviors. It's important to remember the way you were. Otherwise, you're not saved from it. He says, if our past sins, tribulations, and suffering are what help to define us and shape us into who we are and to who we've become, if those struggles were not somehow part of where you ended up, then your resolution is not that you're saved. You're not saved without having that piece of yourself to be saved from, which I thought was kind of interesting. But
yes, and as you were talking, I realized like it's only a transformation if there was something before and after. If you only have the after and only talk about the after, like the new person that you are, it's like there was something that you went through, and for a transformation to happen, that is what's needed, a before and an after. And I'm also struck by, I think there's a real, like a strong link between, like, even the language. I mean, I was struck by that before in OP, saviors and demons. Like, it's a strong religious language as well. Like,
right.
Yeah.
And that's because like I remember them talking about that. I don't know why, but I remember them saying they got those words from the people they were watching. I mean, it's like, we can't, I mean, like, how else do you define it? You know, I just think that's just what we naturally gravitate towards. Yeah.